Hey guys, Sharpend here. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a sequenced ambient pad in phase plant. It sounds something like this. So in order to recreate that sound, the first thing I'm going to do is to open up an analog oscillator. And I'm going to hold Ctrl V and click on it 3 more times so that we have 4 oscillators overall. And now I'm going to just change the wavetable on each one so that we have different wavetables like this. Now in order to create the movement in between those, I'm going to set the gain to -infinite dB. So basically no sound is coming out. And now I'm going to be adding 4 different LFOs. I'm going to set them to sync mode, and I'm going to set them to be square waves like this. And now what you want to do is to just set different values to each one. So let's go with 8 times 16, 5 times 16, 4 times 16, and 3 times 16. So you should definitely experiment with different values yourself, because these will yield various different results. So now I'm going to use each LFO to modulate a different gain knob for a different oscillator, like this. So that each LFO basically brings in and out the volume of a different oscillator. So now we should have sound that's moving. I'm going to reduce the gain since it's probably really loud. Something like this. So you can hear how the different wavetables sort of affect the timbre of the sound each time they get the volume increased and then decreased. You get sort of a moving pattern. And now let's add some effects. Let's add a ladder filter. Let's increase the resonance and find the sweet spot that sounds subtle enough. I think this sounds good. And then let's add some distortion. You want to set the drive to be low enough so that it doesn't add too many artifacts to your sound. I think this sounds good enough. And now let's add some unison to certain wavetables. So let's go, for example, with this one. We can add 3 voices. Let's increase the detuning and reduce the blend, which means that we're having the main voice a bit louder than the 2 additional voices that we added. And let's do the same with this one, for example. So this will add an interesting effect that will make the movement more interesting. Since, as you can hear, certain wavetables now have a chorus effect and certain wavetables don't. And then in addition to that, you can also, for example, increase the harmonic to ×2 for certain oscillators. Basically, what this does is that it increases the octave by 1. So you get certain wavetables that play an octave below and certain wavetables that play an octave above, like this. And it really matters which wavetable you put it into, because you can get very different results based on the wavetable that you increase the octave of. Let's go with the last one and see how it sounds like. And now we can add some noise. So let's add a group, a noise oscillator, and an output. And let's send it to lane 2 so that its effects will be separate from lane 1. Let's send lane 1 to lane 3 so that its effects on lane 2 won't affect lane 1 at all. And now for the noise, basically what you want to do is to high pass it so that you're not getting the very obnoxious low end rumble that is very unnecessary for this sound. Like that. Let's also reduce the gain of the noise because it's way too loud. And in addition to that, we're going to low pass it so that we're not getting the very obnoxious high-end frequencies. Something like this. Maybe we can high pass it a bit more, something like that. So now I'm just going to reduce the gain of it by a bit. And if you want your pad sound to sound more stuttery, we can reduce the gain of the noise at all, and then just increase it back using all of the LFOs to create movement each time any oscillator comes up with the LFOs. So that way you create a more stuttery pad that really only makes a sound when any one of the oscillators is on. So now we get a more stuttery noise sound, but it's really loud, so I'm going to reduce its gain again. So I'm going to set it to be pretty low. And if you want to reduce the stutteriness of the noise, you can also add a limiter to just limit the noise at a certain threshold so that it's going to sound more compressed and less stuttery overall. Something like this. And now you can also add some delay. So once you add a delay, we can really remove the stutteriness of the pad, since the delay will fill up the empty spaces in between the LFOs. So right now it sounds like this. And once you add a delay, like for example at 4 times 16, you're going to hear that all of the empty spaces are being filled up. Let's set it on ping pong so that it goes from the left here to the right here. You can hear how this reduces the movement and creates a more ambient pad. So if you're looking for that, that's great as well. And then you can also add some reverb, for example. You want to increase the dampen so that it doesn't get way too wide, and set the decay at around like 4 seconds, and set the mix to your taste. This also creates a more ambient pad as well. And then if you want to, you can increase the cutoff as you go, like to automate it at around like until 3000 Hertz or something like this. But if you do, you probably want to increase the drive by a bit to make it sound more realistic. It just sounds slightly better in my opinion when you have some more drive the more you open up the filter. If you open up the filter all the way, it will sound slightly weird and very digital, so I don't know if you want to do that, but it's really up to you. So one thing that you should pay attention to is that you probably shouldn't play bass notes with this patch, because if you do, you're most likely going to have a very weird rhythm in your bass, and you want your bass to have a stable rhythm. So here's an example. Here's a bass note, and I'm going to enable a metronome so you can hear how it sounds sort of weird with the metronome in the BPM of my project, even though it is LFO synced. So you can hear how the movement sort of sounds off. I'm going to turn the delay off so we can hear it a bit better. So it's good if you're looking for some random element in your bass, but if not, you probably want to go with a bass that doesn't have a lot of different sequenced movement, since you want something stable. So with the bass and the arp, it should sound like this. And it definitely adds a very interesting rhythm to your track. And basically, I also suggest that you experiment with the LFO shape, because if you use different ones, you can create really interesting results. Like if you use a saw, you're going to create sort of like a reversed movement, which is also very interesting. And if you're looking for something more subtle, you can use a sine instead. It's going to sound more like waves and not as much reversed as the saw wave. And that is pretty much it. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below what subject you want me to cover up next time.